Bert, 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 Bert! Yeah! Ron Babe was right. Ron Babe was right.
I'm feeling spry. Hey everybody, it's Ron Bain with the Hunting Dog Podcast. This episode's a repeat. And don't go like, stop, I already heard it. No, chances are most of you have not heard it. This is from 5 years ago, one of the first Justin McGrail interviews I did. It's such a good one. It's kind of tied into that thing I did 2 weeks ago on the myths. This was another batch of myths. I actually did have a veterinarian on. We recorded Sunday. And between the rabbit holes we went down, it took us 2 hours to get to our point. We both agreed we need to redo that episode. It just was disjointed. I had my wife's corgi out here. It was barking. You don't mind a little kennel noise, but my God, what a pain in the ass that was. Anyway, but this is all tied into this Thursday's Zoom room. So for my Patreon patrons, I try to do a little bit more for you because you do more for me. And so every other Thursday or 2 Thursdays a month, we have the Zoom room, which you'll get a link to the Zoom room in your email that you use to subscribe to Patreon. If there was ever a time you wanted to join Patreon, if you were thinking about it, this would be the time, because I got Justin McGrail coming in Thursday. He's going to be here at 7:30. We start at 8 o'clock Eastern time. And the reason we decided to do this is when we get the Q&As for the podcast I do with Justin, there's always some information being left out. Not on purpose, just it might be what state do they live in, what time of the year did you get the dog. Everybody can't think of everything when they write in a question because, the question's like, my dog's not retrieving, blah. But anyway, Justin said, what a better way than to take care of your Patreon patrons is to, I don't know how many we're going to be able to filter, but you are going to hear, in my opinion, one of the best trainers that I've ever met in my life that comes about this with a depth in dog training that you don't often see. And believe me, as a NAVTA judge, there's a lot of trainers come out and run their dogs or run other people's dogs and client dogs in the tests, and they don't make them like this. Anyway, so if there was ever a reason to join Patreon, even if you just wanted to do it for a month, I don't care, but that would be silly because we're going to be on there at least every other couple months. Jordan or Jason, Justin's going to come over here. We're going to set this up. We're going to film a little bit of it, not this time, and we are going to record some of this. And as regular listeners, you're going to get a little bit of this. You're going to get some of the content. But the beauty of it is, the questions are going to come on screen live, so he can parse this out and really try to help somebody who's got a dog question. That's so exciting. It almost fails in my trip over to Pike Gear the other day to pick up some new Kiowa pants and shirts. Well, I don't know if that fails in comparison to it, but I was just as excited about getting Justin over here as I was going over to Brent Pike's place, and got me some new gear. I cannot tell you. I did get a version, not the final version, but I got a version of the Tongass pants. You're gonna like. I saw some stuff that I'm sworn to secrecy on, but new Kiowa shirt, new Kiowa pants, so little design changes because when people write him, he pays attention. He's like, yep, you're right. That's something we need to do. And I never thought about this. I always say how comfortable it is. It's that comfortable because it's that light. A pair of pants is 15 ounces. You'd need to have an old, what would you call it, a food scale to measure most of your clothes. I mean, 15 ounces. The shirt's 11 ounces. And you know that every pound you take off your body is taking 5 pounds off your feet. That's why those backpackers, break your toothbrushes in half and everything. I think they're ridiculous. But anyway, that's why they do it. So check out Pike Gear. And if you're going to, I'm telling you, I was at the fulfillment center. And I said, where's the rest of the stuff? He goes, I can't keep it on the shelves. So he said, tell everybody if they're looking for something, he is running out faster than he can make it. So just telling you, I'm giving you fair warning. There. I'm going to give you the same fair warning I would if I saw you put your dog in the truck without a kennel, or if I saw you put your dog in the truck in some cheap-ass kennel while you're driving a truck that costs $30 or $40 or $20, whatever $1,000 it is. don't put your dog in something that's not safe for your dog. Gunner Kennel, lifetime warranty, the strongest, the only one on the market that can do what it does. When you're ready to protect your dog, like you protect you and your family and everybody else, you'll get a Gunner Kennel, and you're not going to go, oh great, I'm ready for. You're going to get a sense of pride when you get that kennel. When you close that door, and then you got the upper and bottom, the little click locks. If you got a dog that likes to rattle the cage a little bit, like some dogs do, short hair sometimes, there's a little upper and lower pin on the door. I'm telling you what, it's like a bank vault. You'll have a sense of pride, almost. Well, I would say equal to when you get your new side-by-side. And I'm saying that because the CZ USA, the 1012, they're sending me the 1012 autoloader for goose season, duck season. But I'm a break open guy, and I love the Bob White, the Sharp Tail, the Drake, the Ultralight. They got the Southpaw versions of the Drake. I don't know of another company that I can't imagine. I only wish CZ USA was my partner in crime here for the last 5 years. We're going to be around. We're going to do a lot of stuff together. I got a couple hunts coming up with them. So there's going to be a lot of CZ content in November. It's going to be a ball. I'm so glad they're on. Check out their lineup of guns. The most affordable, price point, quality guns in this country. And that I'm not reading that off a script. I can remember it because I said it last week. When you start taking care of your dog, you get yourself the gun. Take care of yourself. For this season, especially in this heat, wilderness athlete, hydrate and recover, energy and focus when you're exercising or working, and canine athlete, energy and focus, which is called New Dog, and hydrate and recover. It makes a difference. Your dog, just like, what do I always tell you? I've been feeding one food my whole life, Purina. Have I supplemented my dogs in the past? Off and on, yes. Do I supplement them all the time now? I do. Just like my wife makes great meals, just like Purina makes great dog food, but I still supplement. I take some vitamins. I take, a little supplementation for your dog. Take care of your dog like you take care of yourself with Canine Athlete. Wow, that almost sounds like a disc jockey. And then when you're out there, you got everything else you need. Don't forget your Onyx map, okay? Your Onyx Hunt map is a tool that, like I think I said this about 3 or 4 episodes ago. It's going to be like the word Kleenex. Now, there's a lot of brands of tissue, but we call them Kleenex. When somebody refers to online mapping, there is only one leader in this world, Onyx Hunt Maps. It is a game changer. I'm going to be doing some stuff with Ben. Well, you don't know who Ben is. Anyway, Ben is one of the Onyx guys. We're going to do a little what we say, maybe a little mini video together. We're going to try to meet over in Wisconsin somewhere, possibly Minnesota this year, and do a little something with Onyx. And it's a game changer. It almost could change your game if you hunt early season grouse and woodcock, and if it's been raining by you, and it's been raining a lot everywhere, and if you don't have your gum leaf boots will change your game just like Onyx Hunt changes your game. Gum leaf boots, 85% gum rubber, they are without a doubt. There used to be boots in this country that were predominantly or over 50% gum rubber. That is long gone. That ship has sailed. So the ship that sails back from the UK with the gum leaf boots to Jack's warehouse, that's what you want to do. Gum leaf USA, they got models for women. I should say colors for women. If I was a woman hunter, which I could be, a little dress up, but they've got some wellies in different colors that some women, like my wife, she likes the blue ones. So hey, wear the blue ones. I like the green. I like the brown. I like to look like I'm hunting all the time. Check them out. Backridge Ammunition had a long talk with Adam today. So much stuff. This is one company that was really affected by COVID. People are paying attention. People are trying the ammo. People are liking the ammo. It's getting out there, but getting supplies and parts and components. He is pulling his hair out, but he is still making the best non-tox ammunition that you can possibly make, and it's at a price point just like CZ. Like you could go buy a different gun and spend twice as much money, and you could go get some non-toxic, cost twice as much at Backridge, but you'd be wasting your money for the quality, the price point. Non-toxic ammunition. Check out what they got. Their stock is literally rotating like a revolving door. They are, as soon as they get components in, boom, it's on the shelf, and they're waiting for primers or they're waiting for wads. This COVID thing has really screwed things up, but they got it. They're making enough for this season. Pay attention. South Dakota, I told you, wants me to talk you into going. How do I talk you into going to South Dakota? It should really be like, how do I talk you out of going to South Dakota? It's, there's more pheasants there than there are people. So for one thing, I bet you I'm not going to see a whole bunch of people running around with masks on because it's South Dakota. 6 feet distancing, more like 6 acre distancing. Hit South Dakota this year. Try their walk-in areas. Try the CREP program. That's in addition to the Hunter Access program. In fact, I told a guy the other day. I said, you know what you do when you go to South Dakota? I want you to look at the land along the Missouri River, Army Corps of Engineer land. That's also there. People think of South Dakota. If you think of Mitchell, you're missing South Dakota. Okay, sure, Mitchell's got a couple of. We call them burlesque clubs back in the day, or some people call them ballet. Yeah, Mitchell's got that if that's where you're going to South. I go to South Dakota to go hunt. There is so much territory to hunt. You want to hunt prairie chickens and sharptails in one state? Yeah? Where did I say? South Dakota. That's right. It's amazing and friendly and big and wild and woolly. I love it there. I love it so much that when Casey from White Lake Hunting Lodge says, Ron, are we going to do the same trip again this year? I said, yep. She goes, what week do you want? I said, I want it on my birthday. My birthday is October 30th. I'll be 63 years old, and we are going to celebrate my birthday and Halloween all in one night, downtown White Lake. Boy, I'm telling you what, downtown White Lake, South Dakota, hopping place. Not really. But you've been to South Dakota. That's why I love the state so much. These little small towns, every one of them looks like the day. Looks like if you'd have went to South Dakota in the year I was born, these towns pretty much look like they did in 1957. And I love them, and I love the people of South Dakota for it. And I love Casey for putting this hunt on. Get a hold of White Lake Hunting Lodge if you want to be part of that hunt. It's an old-fashioned walk up, shoot 'em up, blockers, flankers, pushers. But there's plenty of time in the afternoon to venture out with your dog or peel a little time away in the morning. They don't hunt till 10. Go out and chase some prairie chickens or sharptails, or run your pointing dog on. There's a huge WMA right attached to their property. You can go get your dog, stretch your legs for an hour or two in the morning, have breakfast, get on the pheasant hunt, go back out again late afternoon, and go chase some chickens or some sharptails. What else could you want? Because South Dakota's got it all, and it'll have me there. October 30th. Nah, boy, talk about tying things together. I'm tight as a drum today. All right, I hope you enjoy this episode. It's an oldie but a goodie. I'll have a fresh one. I'll have a fresh one next week for sure. Actually, I'm going to throw out an extra one this month. That long story. Who cares? I'm blabbed on for 12 minutes. That's pretty good though. 12 minutes for my normal. I'm cutting this thing down. I'm probably talking a little fast. I'm not like Ben Shapiro fast, but I'm talking a little fast, but. Love you guys. I love you girls. Enjoy the episode with Justin, and I hope to see you Thursday at the Zoom room. You'll get that in your email if you're a Patreon patron. Bye. Hello, everybody. It's Ron Bain with the Hunting Dog Podcast. I am back at Black Creek Training Center talking with Justin McGrail. We had such a good response and downloads from the last one, although Justin promised to do another one later anyway. We thought we'd come back and do another podcast together. And the last time I saw Justin, he actually came up with a great idea for the next podcast. And this one will be kind of called Mythbusters. We're going to cover some of those things that your uncle told you, the armchair trainer told you, the things you read in the book that aren't always necessarily true. So we're going to get on with that. And I just want to ask Justin, how was your honeymoon?
It was perfect. It was good.
Perfect?
Yep. Yeah.
No complaints.
No complaints.
There's your wedding ring. It's not bright and shiny.
No, imagine that.
Is that for a reason?
Imagine that.
All right, we'll save that for after the podcast.
Yeah.
You can tell me why he wears a black ring. All right, Justin. Let's just go into. We'll go to a couple of the first ones I just read to you. and this isn't as much a myth as just sometimes people will come up with things and you hear a lot.
Yeah.
A first-time breed for a person. Have you ever heard anybody say, don't get this dog for a first-time breed, or don't get that dog, or what have you seen? Has anybody ever asked you that kind of question?
Yeah, I get asked all the time. The most important thing, I think, is to make a fair assessment of the frequency of hunting you're going to do and the type of hunting you're going to do, and then try and find a breed that in general matches that, and something maybe you have to like what you look at. And I always tell people the look of a dog is really a terrible reason to make your decision.
No, but he's cute.
Right.
He's cute.
But a good example would be a guy who is the occasional hunter, neighborhood preserve, but primarily going to be a family companion. The last thing they need is some super high-powered field trial type dog.
Right.
By that same token, a dog that's owned by a 25-year-old go-getter who's going to put in 60-plus days a year, he needs a little more horsepower there, and he's going to be even if he's a first-timer. So make that fair assessment, and then within each breed, there's the whole gamut of dogs.
If you do your research.
And do your homework, get to know the parents a little bit. I think asking trainers is a great way to start, because I'm totally unbiased, right? I tell people I'm like the mechanic who works on all makes and models. If you go ask a breeder, how their dogs are, well, that's like pulling into
a Ford garage.
Yeah, hey, does Ford make a nice pickup? Well, what are they going to say? Of course.
That's a good point.
Yeah, not that they're trying to deceive you, but they're obviously very fond of that breed, biased to some extent.
So really, go back to thinking, what are my expectations that I'm really going to get done with this dog? And then go to the breed. And
then within that breed, try and find those individual lines that tend to produce that kind of dog.
And you can do that with some research.
You do some research, some guys that own them that hunt and do the same kind of hunting that you're going to do. The hunt test, the NAVDA test, anybody can show up and watch that day.
Yeah, that's good.
And watch those dogs work in the field. You get to see them on birds. You get to talk with the owners. Do all that kind of before you take that puppy home and make your decisions.
So don't just find a breed and pick it.
No.
All right.
No.
Well, that's good. All right. Steadying a dog too early or too late. Some people think if you steady him too early, you're taking something out of him. If you wait too long, you can't get it done. What's your thoughts on steadying a dog too early or late?
Yeah, so the underlying myth there is something that's real common in dog training, whether it's from whoever's giving you advice, from one of the books you read, is having a firm age date on your dog's training calendar that, okay, when they're this age, this is what we do.
Right.
And you don't always want to go by that. You want to go by that individual dog.
Right.
I can truly say that while I have similar or same training goals for all these dogs I work with, the path to that goal is never exactly the same, and not always on the same duration or timetable. It's all about that balancing act. So in terms of steadiness, the biggest thing we look for, because there's some truth there, that if you do it too early, not only can you take a little bit of enthusiasm out of that dog, but one of the other big traps to overzealous early steadiness on point.
Getting ready for the hunt test.
Or from a practical wild bird hunting standpoint, the biggest training scar I see from, really strict, rigid obedience at a young age is an overabundance of unproductive points. Because you take a dog that has really strong pointing instincts, and right out of the chute, you teach them, hey, when you smell a bird and point, you're not allowed to move or you're going to get in trouble.
Right.
That dog's going to go out there and hang up on every little old scent, weak scent, off game, woodcock splash, feather piles, and he's going to point, and through training, we've made him afraid to move and work his way through that.
But he never got in trouble for pointing.
He never got in trouble for pointing. That's right. So he's learned that the safe bet is just stand still. And then you end up with a lot of unproductive points. So the other side of that spectrum is postponing it too long. Where you're going to get in trouble there is with a very high drive dog. Those dogs will always tolerate more control earlier in life than, say, a dog that is a little bit lower in drive. Doesn't mean he's not going to be as good a bird dog, but you got to train those dogs different.
Right.
If you let those dogs go too long and they have a long history of chasing birds, you can get in trouble. It's just going to make it more of a job than it has to be.
Right.
Now, where you really get in trouble with those dogs is on pen-raised birds that the dogs have success running down, marking down, catching, or even finding and flushing again is a reward for that chase.
Right.
If you let those dogs run around the prairies out west and chase sharptails and pheasants till their little heart's content, they kind of self-teach that there's chasing don't work.
Yeah, it's never produced shit for 'em.
Right. It doesn't work. There's no reward. And so that environment, you can let them chase a little bit longer. So, you kind of got to control that environment. I'm always watching that dog.
Right.
Most of these dogs have real strong pointing instincts now. They don't always show themselves in the same age window.
Right.
But I like to sufficiently develop that pointing instinct, and as much as that dog's ability to sift and sort scent, you learn to use his nose, learn the difference between when they are there and when they were there.
Right.
We don't want our dogs pointing where that bird was 8 minutes ago.
Right.
We want him to work through that,
Right.
see if he can figure out where they went. So it's an individual case-by-case basis.
Yeah, I know there's no date you can put on it.
Right.
But that's about learning to read your dog.
It is.
I remember one time somebody said, when your dog stops as a puppy, when it pretty much starts blowing you off and stop listening to you, it might be time to start doing some obedience. But that doesn't necessarily mean steadiness obedience.
No, but that's where I look. That sign for handling. That's
you start to see him getting more disconnected from you in the hunt.
Yeah, that's where we're going to be a little more insistent and focus the training on, quartering, turn when I tell you to turn, come when I tell you to come, or here, most guys use, and start to bring some of those obedience yard work commands into the field and into the hunting environment. And until that time, I'm running those puppies, letting them explore. You want to build boldness and confidence, and you want to build their search. You don't want to stifle that through being, too obedient oriented in the field.
Yeah, one thing I've always told people, I said, there's healing is important, sit and stay calm and all that. But yeah, when you make a commitment for steadiness, that is so unnatural for a dog. That is like really a totally steady dog. That's a high level of obedience.
It is. It is.
So that's like throwing somebody that's not ready for college in a college class almost.
Yeah.
Or giving them, the remedial class, which is the wrong class for them.
Yeah, you want that pup to have had some time out there, some actual hunting experience, most cases, and really have a firm grip on the big picture. Yeah. Otherwise, they don't see where this segment of training fits in the big picture. And that's where you can come into some confusion on the dog's part, possibly get into a few of the potential negative side effects of steadiness training.
Or blinking too, right?
Blinking, flagging.
As opposed to not getting in trouble for pointing the bird. They really won't get in trouble if they don't find the bird.
Yeah. And for, some of these terms are used in different ways by different people, but all blinking is an intentional avoidance of a situation for fear that he's going to get in trouble.
Right.
And so you really got to lose your cool and mishandle a dog in the presence of a bird to cause that. If they're that far off, something has really gone bad.
I've seen people lose their cool.
Yeah.
I've seen a guy one time years ago in Hastings pick up his dog and slam him.
Yeah.
On the ground.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, that was really productive.
Yeah. Well, always remember this. You'll never cause any problems with your bird work if the dog is thoroughly and truly woe trained. Because then anytime you correct the dog, it should understand that was for disobedience to the woe command.
Right.
It had nothing to do with showing interest in birds.
Right.
Now, I'm going to tell you right now, probably 8 out of every 10 guys that proceed with steadiness on birds do not have a sufficient level of woe training.
Yeah.
Just saying whoa when your dog points doesn't teach them what whoa means.
No, walking up and giving them that little whoa.
Yeah. You can pick any word in the English language. That's not why he's standing there. He's standing there because his genetics are driving him to point.
Right.
You need to teach whoa as an obedience command, separate from pointing, separate from birds, to a very high level, and then incorporate it with their bird work.
I had this other question we're going to hit on a little early because of that.
Yeah.
Oh, hang on a minute. My fans are used to, my audience, I should say, I want to call them fans. My audience used to me blabbering on and stopping for a beer break. Going into, don't want a dog to be steady so it gets to the bird quickly. Have you ever heard that?
Yeah. I've never heard of a guy that has a really steady dog say, man, I wish my dog would have broken chased those birds. So here's the grain of truth in that. Yeah. There's all these different tiers of steadiness. So again, a recap for any novice owners out there, the term staunch replies to a dog that will reliably hold his points until the bird flushes on our approach. Anything less than that, I think you got some work to do. We don't want those dogs giving us a little helper to flush the birds. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we want that dog to stay put. So that staunch would be the correct term for that. The next tier would be steady to wing, and that means the dog stays put even when that bird flushes in front of it. Big jump in level of training required there, right? As you mentioned, every instinct, every fiber of that dog, when that bird comes up, says, go get him. So you need a little higher tier of woe training to achieve that. Steady to wing and shot means the dog will stay put even to the sound of a gun. When the birds fly off. And then the next and final tier for competitive dogs is fall. Again, even a higher level of control required.
The treat sometimes with a gunner just drop 12 feet in front of his face.
Exactly, especially the dogs that are very retrieve-driven and motivated. Boy, do they want to go then. So that takes even more work.
But to say, I've actually, and I remember reading, the guy says, I never train my dogs to be steady so they can get to the bird quicker. I can't picture too many situations. First of all, if you're in the grouse woods, the shots aren't that far.
Right.
So, I mean, what's the advantage of your dog busting? There could be more birds on the ground. And out west, if you're taking a good shot and you got good sight vision, how much quicker is that dog going to be there before that bird hits the ground? You know what I'm saying? I mean, your average pheasant's you're gonna hit it at 30 yards. It's gonna fall at 50. Don't take a dog 3.2 seconds to get to 50 yards.
No.
So I've never. And now I'll tell everybody the truth. My dogs are not steady out in the field. Let me always go in and do the flushing, and I just live with whatever I live with. But to say that you don't want to have a steady dog so it can get to the bird quicker, I think it's just a.
I don't buy into it.
I don't buy into it.
I don't buy into it. And always remember this. And for most of my hunting dog clients, I am going to advise them that probably the right move for their dog is to allow it to break when you kill a bird, when that dog sees it goes down. Only because, for most guys, it's not worth the extra work and then the extra ongoing reinforcement as you hunt to instill that permanently in the dog.
That could disappear.
But if you're driven to do it, it's not going to be detrimental in any way. And for those dogs that are completely finished to the shot and the fall of the bird, and you find yourself in that situation feeling like I got a cripple, always remember at any moment you should be able to send them.
Even if you see in the wing flutter, it's starting to get some altitude.
Release him.
It's hit.
Cut him loose. So I don't see that to be.
When you hunt out west,
so I've got dogs that are all over the map.
You got client dogs.
And then I have my personal dogs. Some of my personal dogs are completely finished to trial standards. They'll stand there, even in the heat of battle when birds are flying and guns are going off. And birds falling. I haven't found that to be overly beneficial compared to some of my other guide dogs that I make absolutely no exceptions to the rule that they have to be steady to wing and stop to flush. As a safety thing, I don't want my dog behind a low-flying bird, and I don't want it to screen 100. Maybe we worked 4 hours for that opportunity.
One bird.
For that golden opportunity. And we didn't have a shot because the dog was in hot pursuit.
And the bird was a low flyer.
The other reason that I always will have steady to wing as a non-negotiable standard is the multiple bird find. First bird that gets up, we don't have a shot. Or we're still too far away. That dog that stays put, all kinds of birds, but especially sharptails are notorious for that staggered flush. And then, we take 15 more steps. Now we're within range. There go the rest of them. We have a shooting opportunity that was created with steadiness training.
That's a good point.
And so I want to do that. But most of my dogs, I will finish them all the way out, and then I start to let them self-release when they see that bird kill and fall.
And then it's like.
It's fine.
Problem.
But the gunshot itself is not the release as a finished product. No, this takes a couple seasons.
They got better eyes than we do.
They do.
For movement. They can see a bird fly away. They can see a bird drop out of the sky.
And obviously for your competition dogs, they're required at the adult, highest level of testing that they have to wait to be sent to retrieve a down bird. And
to go off on a tangent story, I was hunting geese with my old wire hair, Zygon, and he was a better goose dog than he was anything else. And we came up over this little rise, and it was just going to be a one-shot deal. We were just going to go bust into this flock of geese, take what we could, and take some geese home. And we weren't trespassing. We had permission. But we didn't have any decoys. There was no way we were going to wait for morning to come around. His dad just told us, this guy's dad just said, hey, if you go over to this farm, get over this rise, there's geese in that field. Let's go. And I had him trained for down. So I had him on a down, and I had him to the point where he would stay down, and I had him chin on the ground down if he wasn't hot. But this time we just kind of walked up together on a heel, no leash. Birds got up a little early. We took some shots, and it was one bird started wavering. And he picked out the difference. You know, there was 100 birds up in the air, and this bird's going kind of low, and it went, I don't know how far it went, hundreds of yards.
Yeah.
But he knew that bird was shot.
Sure.
From seeing birds get shot, he could tell. He wasn't just chasing the flock. He was chasing that crippled bird.
Absolutely.
It's amazing what they can do.
And that's, that predatory instinct that had been developed through all your hunting.
Yeah.
The same way a lion can spot the one impala out of the herd. Exactly, right?
Yeah.
It's the same instinct at play.
Mm-hmm.
These dogs have that predatory instinct in them.
Mm-hmm. Let's see what's next here. This might not be a long one, but can a field trial dog make a good foot dog?
Yes. Not each and every one of them, but yes.
You've seen it?
I have.
Okay,
I've seen it.
A lot of people say, like you said earlier, you want a high desired dog maybe if you're going to be doing more, but there's a lot of people, I've heard people say, don't get a field trial dog if you want a hunting dog.
Yeah.
And
it really is all in the training. And, the field trial dogs that kind of take the heat for not being good hunting dogs are the horseback pointing breeds, right?
Yeah.
And if you go to a horseback field trial, you'll see those dogs, little specks out there. I mean, they're 300, 400, 500, 600 yards or more sometimes out there. What you need to remember is those dogs were raised and encouraged to do that in that way, running them off horseback in big open country, and actually push those dogs out a little bit and encourage that. Mm-hmm. I've known many dogs that turn into a completely different dog if you're not on a horse and you're walking with a shotgun in your hand.
Really?
They're smart, right? And they learn.
Yeah.
Okay.
I haven't had that experience.
Yeah, when Dad's walking, we're bird hunting. When he's on a horse, we're competing, and this is a different game, and they can learn to play two games.
Times, right?
Yeah.
Are most horseback trials braces?
Always.
Always a brace?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's going to also keep that dog trying to beat that other dog to the bird.
Yeah. One thing I'll never forget, this was many, many years ago. I spent a long weekend at some very well-known and successful horseback trialers' place in Pennsylvania training with them, George and Mike Tracy. And at the time, they each had a couple of really big winners on the circuit that were known to be these huge running dogs, right? And one day, they let both of them loose out of the dog trailer, no check cord, no e-collar, and those dogs laid right in front of him and quartered at about 50 yards.
Really?
One's a setter, one's a pointer. And I thought, what gives? I never would have imagined these dogs would handle like that, hunt that close.
I would have took $1 bet that
I would have.
A run off for 20 minutes.
Nope. And they explained to me, they said when they see us off a horse, they know that means there's a bird right here somewhere. They've learned. When they're on a horse, it's time to run.
Wow.
When they're on the ground, it's time to hunt.
So it is a pretty good myth we just busted.
It is. Yeah. You certainly want to train for it, but
right.
A dog can do both if you have the right candidate for it. It really comes down to brains, a dog and cooperation, right?
I don't think we give enough credit to that when people are, when you hear, I've heard people say, what you want to do is get a field trial dog that didn't make the cut with his owner. Mm-hmm. Like say, he wasn't big enough running, so.
Yeah.
What the owner's problem, I'm guessing, as a breeder, that dog didn't have a lot of brains to go along with the run he had.
Right, yeah.
Right?
Intelligence is huge, and trainability is huge.
Yeah.
And sometimes the field trial dog that's available to us as hunters, not running big enough was one of 8 things they didn't like about the dog,
but it's
right?
the one they advertise.
Sure, it's what every bird hunter wants to hear. Yeah.
That's a good, I like that.
So.
That's a good one. Picking a pup, like, how do you pick a pup?
Yeah.
There's a lot of little don't take the one in the corner.
Yeah.
Don't take the one that's too aggressive. Take the one in the middle. Well, if there's a litter of 8, I've seen complete litters that pass their natural ability test. They're all quality puppies, at least at that stage. Do you have any myths about don't do this with a puppy, don't pick that puppy, or always pick this puppy?
Yeah, for the novice dog owners, I think the first thing you said does hold a grain of truth. If you see that puppy that's overly timid and shy, that's going to be a difficult dog to work with most of the time. Most of the time. Now, some of those pups are going to come out of that.
Yeah. Just being away from their litter mates.
Yeah, and if you see that dog that's just super bold and brash and outgoing, and that might be one to steer clear from. That might be a pup better off in someone's hands that has a lot more experience.
Yeah.
Now, really, the only person who can say with any accuracy which pups in those litter are like that is the person that raised the litter.
Right.
Sometimes when a prospective puppy buyer goes to look at a litter, they think, boy, these three are really mellow here. Yeah, because the 2 hours before you got here, they've been running around like crazy and they're tired.
Right.
And then this one that is chewing on your pant leg and going nuts, yeah, he just woke up. So trust your breeder.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because that's what one guy said. He says on one visit. Well, that's a lot of times all person does.
Yeah.
One visit, and they're like, "That's the one I want."
Yeah.
And it ain't the dog. I when I picked Artie from this kennel, it could have been a bunch of tired dogs, and I wanted to get an orange one, and I ended up with her being brown liver. She was the only pup walking around with her tail up, erect and kind of proud. Mm-hmm. The other ones were all walking around, kind of dopey and tails tucked. But they could have she could have been sleeping for an hour, and they could have been playing for an hour.
Right.
So, yeah, that's trust your breeder.
Yeah.
There you go. Just go to your breeder and say, try to pick me one and be honest.
Yeah.
Or tell the person, look, I want a bulldog.
Yeah.
And then he'll try to earmark one for you.
Yeah.
People communicate for weeks.
Yeah, give your breeder as much information as you can about your home life, your daily routines, your frequency of hunting, the kind of hunting you're going to do, and after that, leave it in their hands. Yeah, most people are picking for markings and color, honestly. Mm-hmm. As far as abilities in the field, the guy who has the first pick has no better chance than the guy who gets the last one left.
No. The easiest one I ever got was the guy who said, I've got one left.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I'll take it.
Yeah.
It's easy.
Yeah, don't overthink it.
You just Ford say you can have any color car you want as long as it's black.
Right. Yeah.
Don't put too much thinking in it.
If I could pick the best bird dog in a litter with any consistency, I do nothing but fly around on planes, and I'd be retired by now if I could actually do that. Nobody can do that.
Nobody can.
No, you put your faith in genetics.
Not with the puppy puzzles and not with the dogs.
No, and you still need some luck because not every pup in the litter is going to have the same skill set. That's not the way genetics work.
I know two that just got imported from Czechoslovakia or something that are down in Indiana, and the one is just like your perfect average dog, and the other one's a wallflower.
Yep.
You come in every litter.
Yeah.
Here's one. I think most people know this isn't true anymore. Neutering your male to change its behavior.
Yeah, you would like to think, but I tell you how many of these things that I hear over and over, and a lot of times by people who have owned multiple dogs, and I thought kind of knew better.
Right.
I don't see it really. Yeah. If there's genetic temperament quirks in there, whether you neuter that dog or not, they're still there. They may not be as severe. They may not show themselves as early. Mm-hmm. And primarily when people think about that, with the males, they're thinking of aggression and, marking, things like that.
Or some people are, I don't want my dog chasing females. I had a neutered dog that bred to, didn't have a litter of puppies.
Yeah.
But could still go through the motions.
Yeah.
It was all juice, no seed.
Yeah.
It's like a sun-kissed orange.
Yeah, and I think, now there is some science to support, though, that, neutered males are going to be less likely to want to stray and wander,
Probably stray and wander, but usually I think that comes from, I'm guessing here, with some success with a female. If once a dog's bred, that's a whole different ball game, too.
Yeah.
I think if you took a male that was bred a few times, I think personally he'd be just as interested in a female. Yeah. Because he don't know he doesn't have any nuts.
Right. Yeah, could be. We don't always know what's going on between their ears,
No. Yeah. But behavior-wise, I wouldn't suggest it for behavior-wise, like just field stuff or just people say he's just too rambunctious.
Yeah.
It's probably not because he's got testicles.
No, there's a lack of training there typically.
And or poor breeding.
Yeah.
If you didn't do your research.
Exactly. And so a lot of people look to that as the cure-all for their problems, and that certainly is not going to happen.
No.
It's not going to happen.
We should ask Tiffany the biological, just for you guys that don't know, if you didn't hear me mention before, Justin's married to my veterinarian. And so he does not get free care. She charges him for everything. In fact, probably now that they're married, he probably can't even call him for a favor.
No.
It's like before it was like, oh, he's my sweetheart. I'll bring him some. I'll bring him some pills home.
Yeah.
But we should have her do a little research on what the removal of, like a serious removal of, what does that actually do to a dog?
Sure.
Is it just nothing?
Yeah.
Because it doesn't change a guy when he has a vasectomy.
No, but I think that's a little different. That's different. No, exactly. There's a big difference in those two procedures. But there's some common trending thoughts right now that leaving them intact when they're puppies, the benefits go far beyond, behavior. There's muscle, bone development, tendon and ligament development. And I think kind of the magic number, some people I really respect, their opinion is by 2 years old, that all that other good stuff that's going on because of their hormone, and there's more than just testosterone being produced too. There's other hormones, and and so, but by 2 years old, all the other good that's coming from leaving them intact has occurred, and at that point, if it's not a breeding animal, now there's some legitimate health reasons to go ahead and do it.
It wouldn't be the end of the world. But
no.
I've told people too, if you're going to neuter one of the dogs, for me, wait till they're 2.
Yep.
That's been the number I've used.
Yeah.
I had a couple that did it early, and believe it or not, and it was like before 6 months. Mm-hmm. Both of them one of them ended up having to get put down. I can't say it was related to it, but it had a spinal infection, but it was due to some bone plate growth in its spine. At least that's what one vet said. And the other one, again, don't know for sure if it was due to testicular removal, but what the heck? It's a good friend of mine too, his dog. I can't remember what but it's something to do with the spine. I can't remember. It's a really long word. We need Tiffany to. I'll get it and ask her.
Okay.
We'll put her on next podcast.
There we go.
We'll get some of the medical versions of these myths dispelled. But, they just need to grow their bones and their muscles and all their brain.
Yeah, the physiology behind it's beyond my scope, so we need to consult. I know it.
Training center, all right. How about take your pup in the woods and hide behind a tree?
Oh, yeah. I
heard that a few times?
A bunch, yeah. I hadn't even thought of that one. That's good. So, yeah. So you're not going to cause any harm doing that, and all that'll do is, maybe make the pup for a brief window of its life, creates awareness. That pup come in and check in maybe a little more. I don't see you, want to come back in and find you.
Right.
I don't know that in the long haul it truly makes a whole lot of difference. Yeah. You got to remember these dogs come to us genetically predisposed to have a certain hunting style. An amount of cooperation. That's all in their DNA, right? It's in the genes. Right. Now, we can kind of mold and shape that somewhat, but we can't change it.
But it wouldn't work in Montana. There ain't no trees.
No trees half the places. Get down along the creeks. Yeah. But most of these dogs at the right age window have that natural want to know where we are. Yeah. And so that's kind of what you're taking advantage of.
It almost becomes a catch-22 kind of thing. I do that. It worked. My dog was good. It just so happened he probably had a really good dog, too. Yeah. Hiding behind that one tree that one day did not change this dog's future hunting or future cooperation level.
And that certainly isn't training him to come back and check in, right? So what you're doing is putting the pup in a situation, in an environment that you're taking advantage of its natural tendency. So don't confuse that with a learned command that you've taught. It's like when somebody throws something for a dog to retrieve and they say fetch, and the dog goes and gets it and brings it back. Yeah. I think we talked about this before last time. It's not because you said fetch. You created an environment that sparked a natural genetic tendency.
To go chase.
So you can't reinforce it. You can get them to do it. Sometimes. Right. Yeah, it's different than a leared command. Yeah. But still, you're working on good behavior patterns and habits, so there's nothing wrong with doing that at all. Yeah.
Do you ever hear anybody say, I don't use the same commands or whistles as anybody else because I don't want my dog listening to them?
Yeah.
I've never had that issue myself.
I haven't either, and occasionally...
There's only a couple whistles on the market.
Yeah. And what will happen is if you hunt, typically... You're going to hunt with the same small group of people on a regular basis pretty much. Yep. And if you do see any confusion on your dog's part, it's usually limited to that first initial experience with the other handler and other dog, and then they learn to filter that out. They know that's not you.
Yeah.
You know, if you're spending the kind of time with your dog that you should be, they learn real quick, that's not my buddy.
Right.
No, that's the other
That's why
guy.
they bring the birds back to the owner of the dog most of the time.
Yeah.
You end up carrying the bird limit for the day.
Yeah.
Because your dog he doesn't come to them.
Yeah.
You know.
And so when you see that reaction to another handler's cues directed at the other dog,
Right.
your dog is probably going to look to you and just tell him, all right, it's okay. That wasn't for you. Go on. And they sort that out real quick.
Right. Yeah. I knew a guy. This is a testing situation.
Yeah.
And at a level where you're going to run with another dog in the field. He did this even before he was running the single, like the NAVDA test, and he used Coke and Pepsi, and drink names for his dog's commands, and he claimed that way my dog's never confused. And I'm like, boy, you're not giving your dog much credit.
No, no.
But yeah, this guy he was an oddball.
Yeah, well, it's always that real eccentric kind of guy who's got to come up with something here and there. And I kind of weeded them out, I think, over the years. But they, I think the standard commands are just fine. You don't have to worry about that.
Different whistles. No. What about there's those silent whistles. And I've seen. And there's like those ones that make that like almost like a teal sound. Do you just use one whistle, just as long as we're on whistles? What do you use for whistles?
Yeah, I use the same whistle for everything. I like that Fox 40. It can be loud if you need it loud on a real windy day with a wider ranging dog. If you've got a close dog, you can make it quiet. Doesn't have a pee in it, so you don't have to worry about it freezing up in the winter, condensation. So. But yeah, sometimes you'll see that guy who's got a lanyard with like 3 different whistles on it. Well, I taught him that this whistle means this and this. Why are you doing that to yourself?
And then when he's retrieving, he goes like the tweet, 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 tweet. I'm like,
yeah.
That's the retrieve whistle. I'm like, really?
Yeah. And most of the time the dog would do it if you said nothing, right? Or no whistle.
That's almost as bad as the new guy. This won't be a myth, but it's kind of a comical one. You hunt with someone who doesn't have a lot of experience, and he doesn't have a trained dog yet. And he takes his hand out and he gives it like a turn signal, like a left turn, like almost the overs in the back.
Yeah.
And then he turns his body and walks, and the dog comes with him. Well, the dog's just coming around to be in front of him.
Yeah.
But he actually thinks he's got it. And then when you shoot a bird down, and this happens at preserves a lot because I take a lot of clients in Virginia out, and I'll see the guy. When the bird goes down, he's calling his dog over, and he's doing this.
Yeah.
He's looking right at his dog, and his dog's like, what do you want?
Yeah, what are you, dancing over there or something? Waving your arms all around?
Yeah, Travolta.
Yeah, right.
And the dog, and I never have the heart to go, I told you your dog didn't know what your arm meant.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's one that people make a mistake on. It kind of look a little silly doing it sometimes.
Yeah, I see a lot of newcomers to upland dogs really hung up on hand signals because maybe they watched one of the outdoor shows. Hand signals really, it's blind retrieve work for retrievers, where we need to communicate to them where this object is for them to retrieve. Right. That has very little application in an upland situation. Almost zero. Yeah. And you hit the nail on the head. What that dog keys on is your body language and your direction.
Yeah.
Very common bad handling habit. Say the dog is somehow ended up behind us and to our left, and we want to go this way.
Right.
Don't turn and face him and try and get his attention. Or if you do get his attention, immediately show him. Turn at your shoulder. Show him where you're going, and that's what they can. Don't stand there waving your arms around.
Yeah. How about don't ever shoot a bird for a pup unless it's a pointed bird.
Yep, I hear that one. And adult dogs. People will carry that on and even into a dog's adulthood. Yeah, very, very common myth. So with a lot of these myths, there is a grain of truth there.
Sure.
But then it gets kind of rolled into this blanket statement that becomes, gospel to some people. Mm-hmm. So here's the one you don't want to shoot, and the roots of that myth. You do not want to shoot a bird that a pointing dog intentionally noses out and purposefully flushes.
Yeah.
It's all about the intent of the dog, and what hinges there is that our ability to read the dog and know the difference.
Yeah.
So if your dog is off to the left hunting and you walk up a grouse that the dog was totally uninvolved with, you're not doing anything detrimental to that dog's training by shooting at that bird.
Right.
No. In fact, most people, that's how they're going to hunt for the dog's life. You might as well start right out of the chute. Bang, he's going to hear that gun and come over. It's an opportunity to work on hunting dead.
Right.
in a real world situation. For me, that's great dog training.
Yeah.
And the people that pass on those are kind of missing the whole, reason for that.
Yeah.
It's the intentional flush that you need to pass on.
Right.
Yeah. We don't want the dog thinking. Yeah, exactly. When that dog knows that bird is there.
Then you've just taught them.
That's how we get them.
That's how we get them.
Yep.
And then you're lucky enough to hit the damn thing.
Right, of course you would be. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that could be a little mini nightmare.
Yeah, so you should be able to read your dog. You should have the awareness of what's going on. Mm-hmm. If there was no ill intent on the dog's part, you're not doing anything detrimental by shooting that bird.
Yeah. I agree 100% on that one. Yeah, I would not. I can't think of a situation where I hardly ever pass on any bird. Well, if I had it, and it could sometimes grouse hunting, you can even hardly tell what's happening.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. So I don't know if there's ever been a time I've either never had a dog take one out intentionally or never paid attention close enough because I swing on every bird.
Yeah.
If it's a bird,
yeah, I
can't honestly say that I've watched a dog get birdie and zoom in and take it out. I haven't seen it. But maybe I'm just and I'm not a full-time grouse hunter either.
No, but there's a big difference too in regards to how we handle bird work situations with pointing dogs and flushing dogs to a certain extent. Where there's a big difference is between pen-raised game and wild birds, okay? The guys only shoot what's pointed, that works just fine on pen-raised birds because they're pretty tame, pretty going to allow a dog to get away with a whole lot. And you're not going to have many wild flushes. Yeah, very forgiving. So that's a real easy rule to play by. Here's a scenario where I wouldn't have any qualms about shooting at a bird. You have a point, you move in, nothing gets up.
Right.
You release your dog to relocate. He's cautiously working out that scent trail.
Right.
And that grouse or any other wild bird decides, hey, man, it's time to leave, right? Boom, the bird goes up, and I have a good enough look to take a shot.
Yep.
There's nothing wrong with shooting at that bird because your dog didn't do anything with the intent of mishandling that bird.
Right.
He had him pointed.
He didn't go from a point to a run after.
Right, yeah.
He's trying to do his job.
He's trying to do his...
couldn't handle the pressure.
Wild birds, something's trying to make a meal out of them every single day, right? So they're pretty good at staying alive, including us and the raptors and all the other predators. So, again, it always goes back to the intent of the dog. Yeah. That dog didn't do anything willfully wrong to force that bird to flight. It's just the way it worked out.
Yeah, good point. And by the way, just had this sickening feeling that I forgot to bring you fish.
Well, we'll get it sometime.
Okay.
You got halibut for me?
Yes, I do.
Wonderful.
I got halibut. I got some salmon. But it just hit. I'm like, I was supposed to bring them. Damn it.
That's all right.
You might have promised Tiffany, halibut on the grill tonight, and I screwed that up. But I can drop it off at the clinic.
We'll get it sooner or later.
Okay. And then on that same thread of only shooting pointed birds, I know I've heard this one a lot. I don't have a problem with it almost in the same situation. If it was chasing it, I probably wouldn't. But I've had my dog point rabbits, and I've shot them.
Okay.
Now, you've probably heard that a lot. Never shoot a rabbit for a bird dog.
Unless you're okay with them pointing rabbits.
Right.
Or flushing rabbits.
Rabbit.
Yeah, it's your dog, so you make the rules, right? That's what I tell people. Nothing's wrong as long as it's on your terms.
Right.
The potential danger there with certain dogs is all of a sudden they start to pay as much attention to bunnies as birds. And if you're okay with that, that's fine. Right. You might find yourself in a situation where there's a whole lot more rabbits than birds.
Good point.
And boy, now next thing you know, we're on a rabbit hunt.
Yeah.
So there's a fine line there.
And then you don't know if they're trailing a bird or trailing a rabbit.
You should be able to sort that out in time. I bet you could read the dog and know which they were messing
very often.
No, I don't get after my dogs for pointing rabbits.
Right.
It comes pretty natural. I don't shoot them, and I don't allow the dog to chase them.
Right.
Yeah.
You just
I use that with if they go to that's my general rule for all chase and trash. I let the e-collar do the work. I don't say a word. Right. I don't try and call them off game.
Right.
I let that be between them and the forbidden critter, and I'm just there to console them when they come back. What's the matter? That bunny sting you a little bit, buddy? Yeah, Let's go the other way. Try and find a bird.
Jackrabbit runoffs that I wish I'd have had without a collar on a dog.
Oh, I have too.
20, 30 minutes.
Gone.
Jesus.
Yeah.
These things can run. And just enough, they can always outdistance the dog. I don't think a dog could ever catch a jackrabbit.
I don't think so either.
Because the one I had, he was gone, completely out of sight on flat ground in South Dakota. Just gone out of sight. And eventually, here comes the rabbit again. Back the same way it came. About 4 minutes later, here comes my dog.
Yeah.
He couldn't even come close to that thing.
No.
I'm going to pause this for just a second.
Sure.
Okay, we're back from, that was a break for our sponsors. And if you noticed, I don't have any sponsors. So there was no commercials for that break. Anyway, to go back on our myth-busting podcast here today, running an old, and you kind of mentioned this earlier in another story, there are people, I have heard people say, always run your young dog with an older dog. It's gonna teach it something.
Yeah.
I've never found it to be true. Maybe with hound dogs, of course. I would think. Right?
Yeah. I'm not an expert on training hounds, but the guys I know that are, that's what they always do.
And I wonder if that didn't bleed over into bird dogs. So
sure.
Speak a little bit about running a young dog and older dog together.
Yeah. I will utilize it only occasionally for certain situations and almost always just briefly. Mm-hmm. Couple situations, if I have a dog that's, pretty reserved and a little clingy and inhibited about getting out there and searching a little bit, sometimes just having another dog out there will increase their level of confidence and show them that, hey, it's okay to get out there and do that.
Right.
I will also use it occasionally where it's a wild bird situation. I'll use an older dog to find birds. They're, of course, going to be much better bird finders than a pup, and then I can make sure that puppy has some bird contact out there.
Yeah.
And so that's one benefit to using an older dog. But that has a very limited lifespan. Reason being, what you always have to watch for is that puppy only learning to follow the old dog?
Right.
He's
not applying anything.
He needs to be developing his own skill set along the way.
Right.
And so occasionally I will use it only briefly. Always remember to...
Almost as putting your toe in the water just to see if that changes something.
It's just a stepping stone.
Yeah.
It's just a stepping stone to try and get a pup through a few little different phases. Mm-hmm. Sometimes, too, their natural tendency is going to be to follow the lead of the old dog, which in the case of hunting and becoming a good bird finder on his own is working against us.
Right.
Things like coming when called, coming in on a whistle or something like that. Those pups are naturally going to come in with the old dogs.
That's a good point.
You can use that a little bit just to establish good behavior patterns, but it's not a substitute for teaching commands,
There you go.
It's still the
You
old...
get a lot of that. People think they're teaching a command, and they're really not.
No, exactly. And so you still have to do the work with each and every individual. If an old dog could actually truly train a puppy, I just have a rocking chair out there and let one of my old dogs do the work for me.
That would take the edge off of it.
Yeah. So, sparingly, you always need to remember, at least that first season, boy, I really like to give a pup almost always his own time on the ground.
Take him to your best spots, right?
Yes. I don't know if we talked about that. I think we might have.
I don't know if we did it on the podcast or just...
I don't know either, but that's really important. So most guys, when they're hunting, especially if they have somebody with them, they're going to put their best dog in their best spot because they want to get some birds or get their guest for the day a lot of shooting.
Yeah.
Your best spots really should be reserved for your puppies.
Yeah.
You tee them up for success.
Right.
And that's the best we can do for them. That's going to further their development. More bird contact for them is a good thing.
Yeah, no, that's a good one.
Yeah, now once they have experience of their own and they're doing good work on their own, then it can be okay to pair them with other dogs if the situation warrants it, eventually.
And that's always easy to tell, too.
Yeah.
Because that trailing might exist for the first minute.
Yeah.
But then you see them just literally crisscrossing past.
Yeah,
they're both working.
Doing their own work.
Fine, whether they're related or they know each other.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, let's look at... switching from one bird species to another bird species. Mm-hmm. With let's say your finished Michigan grouse dog and taking a trip out west or something. You ever heard any little myths about that?
The number one I hear is don't run your grouse dog on pheasants. Mm-hmm. I hear that a lot. I've read it in print, in books, in articles. My first question when I hear somebody say that is, why? The answer I always get, it's because pheasants run. Well, I want to know where you're hunting grouse that grouse don't run. Okay?
Maybe not as fast.
Maybe not as fast, and the grouse does run from pressure different than a pheasant does. But the fact of the matter is, all birds run, even woodcock nowadays that have seen some hunting pressure. It's amazing sometimes. My dog's working a running bird. Yeah. Point, relocate, point, relocate, point, relocate. 100 yards later, it's a woodcock. And I was sure it was a grouse. No, that was a running woodcock. Right. So all birds nowadays run, and that's a skill set that every dog needs to develop.
Yeah.
Here's the grain of truth in that statement. Like I said, so many of these myths do have a grain of truth. A pheasant dog, as his nose is telling him that bird's leaving me, he's going to be inclined to want to self-relocate to keep contact with that bird. Not only is that okay, I think the very best pheasant dogs I've ever seen, they knew how to stay close enough to the pheasant, but not so close that they put him to flight.
Right.
The reason that works on pheasants, but not so much on ruffed grouse, is the pheasant is way more inclined to continue to play the game from the ground. Flight for a pheasant is really his last option. He does not want to fly. He would much rather try and elude danger from the ground. That's what he's built to do.
Oh yeah, and they can do it. They can run across a cut hayfield with their head on the chin on the ground.
You never see them. Yeah. It's amazing. Yeah. And a ruffed grouse, however, as that dog has that bird leaving from, he's established a point, the bird's decided I better get out of here, and he started to walk and or run away from that dog.
Right.
Any movement from that dog's part at that point is pretty likely going to cause that bird to flush.
Right. Yeah.
So where I draw a distinction is I don't allow my ruffed grouse dogs to self-relocate. I want to make sure that dog stays put until I get there, make a flushing attempt in front of the dog, and don't be afraid to flush well out in front of a point. You know, he didn't point him 80 feet away, but the bird has been walking away ever since the dog established point. A lot of times that's where your shot comes. Then if I can't raise a bird, then I will release the dog to relocate.
Right.
So I carry those rules over to every game bird.
I never really thought about that.
So that's really where you want to draw the distinction is no self-relocating for a dog that's going to put a good percentage of his work in on ruffed grouse. Right. You want him to wait for you to say, okay, now it's okay to go. Once we're certain that we can't get the bird in the air. Right. Is it going to be detrimental when you do go hunt pheasants to have a dog that will stand there and wait to be released? I suppose sometimes maybe I get hung out to dry a little bit, you know, where that bird is truly long gone.
Right.
But there is no one perfect format for every situation.
No. And those pheasants that do that, those pheasants that have survived by that, usually are still going to bust 100 yards away from you. The ones I've seen out there.
Yeah.
You know, it's rare that you get to. And I know the dogs do learn to relocate faster on a pheasant. You know, they just, but it's rare that you get those pheasants.
Yeah.
At least the ones I've shot like that. Your best chance are always that bird that wants to sit and use that instinct. We like those birds.
Yeah.
Those birds are our friends.
And a lot of the time, if you look at frustrations with pheasants and pointing dogs, it's not so much the bird itself as the cover that somebody tried to hunt them in.
Yeah.
There is a lot of wild pheasant cover that was made for a flushing dog, end period.
Oh, yeah.
That's just the way it is. If you're trying to put a pointer in there, I'm not saying you can't get any birds that way, but it's rarely pretty.
Right.
So,
especially like a cattail marsh.
I don't want you want to try and hunt them in some grass where they have a decent chance of holding.
Right.
And but those tall cover sloughs, give me a flusher every time.
Yeah. Those dogs can get hung up so many times.
Yeah.
There's so much scent.
Or I guess I should even say, I thought everybody knew this, but every now and then somebody will tell me they tried it. You know, standing crops. Don't put a pointing dog in standing crops.
I've done it because that's the only dog we've had. And we're like wrapping up a day and said, let's go push this field.
Yeah.
But it's a mess. There's never any dog.
No.
You see the dog running.
Yeah.
You see the dog running all the way down the thing. You're basically teaching them to run down corn rows. They're not able to use their normal casting.
No.
All they can do is run down the corn row because they can barely get to the
Scare them out the other end. Exactly. Grab the nearest neighborhood farm mutts and go run them through the cornfield if you must hunt it.
Grab 2 more kids.
Yeah. Otherwise, stick to the harvested cornfields that have good cover adjacent to them. And I don't care if there's 500 pheasants in a standing cornfield. I don't want anything to do with it.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's where we separate. I'll still run in there and try to block.
Yeah.
But you're on a professional end of bird hunting, and I'm on the recreational end of bird hunting. Don't teach a pointing dog to sit.
How many times have you heard that?
Right.
A lot. That is gospel to a lot of people. So, again, the grain of truth in that one is do not only teach a pointing dog to sit.
Right.
And don't teach them sit to such a higher level that they become conditioned to automatically sit every time they're stationary. Okay, the overwhelming majority of people live with their dogs now. A companion's part of their family, and sit is a very handy command to have in just the day-to-day management and life with a dog. But you need to make sure with these pointing dogs that you're keeping it balanced. And by balanced, I mean at least as much whoa work as sit work. All whoa is a stand stay.
Right.
And so you want to teach whoa at the same time and in the same amounts as you're giving a puppy sit training.
Right.
Then the dog is learning. Sometimes I sit, but sometimes I stand. They're two different commands.
If you're working on a whoa with a puppy, would you raise his butt back up?
I do it all but prompt leash pressure. So one thing I've learned kind of on my own, I never read this, nobody ever told me this, you can go back and physically lift a pup's rear end 1,000 times, and boy, they don't learn it. They're basically being conditioned that, oh, every now and then when I sit down, you come over and you lift me, you pick me back up. So there's something that goes on in the process of a dog learning that we need to prompt them to make the decision and use their own muscles to do things. Anything that requires movement from a dog's part, like standing up from a sitting position, we want to prompt them to do it on their own. And you can do that with a little down and forward pressure on your leash or check cord. And that dog will push himself right back up. It's going to be way more effective than physically lifting them up. Yeah, they'll learn it so much faster.
Yeah, because they kind of think you're walking them away, and then gets their butt.
Yeah, and so overdone, and I see this one a lot every year. I get a lot of first-time pointing dog owners that didn't hear that, and they do what sit's the easiest thing to teach a dog, and it's a comfortable position for a dog to be in. It's the easiest thing for him to learn to get a treat, right? Sit and give him a treat. So a lot of these dogs come in super hardwired to sit. It can be a little aggravating when you're starting to teach, whoa, that puppy's always wanting to sit down, always wanting to sit down. Most of them you can work through it without too many headaches, but if you go one step further to debunking the myth. Okay, well, why is that such a bad thing? If we say, whoa, and the dog stops and sits down, it's not proper form, but functionally, your dog stopped when you asked him to stop and it waited to be released. They go, well, then he's going to sit down on point. I've never seen it. Not one time. I have seen dogs that were being steadied to wing that at that point, when the bird flies and you whoa them, then they may assume a sitting position. Not what you're going to want for any form of contest or trials. You're going to be, you're done when that happens.
Pick your dog up,
Pick
please.
your dog up. Yeah, but from a functional hunting standpoint, it's not the end of the world. But that's the roots of that is you make your whoa training harder, but it doesn't have to if you balance it out with early whoa training. You can teach both at the same time.
Let's get just a little detail because whoa obviously is so important. And heel is to me healing is a big one. I know people that can't get their dog to heel.
I don't understand it.
I don't either. And personally, if I have a dog that's young, I've probably been a little lazy. I don't ask for a real good healing, but there's a point when I'm saying, okay, you're going to learn to heel. Pretty much takes a day. It's one of the easiest things to teach a dog. It is. And so when you're talking about balancing the whoa, this is just something I've done. I don't know if it's right, wrong, or indifferent, but it works sometimes. I teach them to do some whoa early as I'm just starting to walk them up and down the table or while they're walking. So I stop, they stop, and I say whoa at the same time. I don't know if that's a training technique or if I'm just being, coincidentally they're just stopping because I'm stopping.
Well,
when you do your whoa training, is it always like do you get them on a table first? Do you get them on the ground? Where do you do your first whoa training with them?
A little bit of, and actually I don't even use the whoa command in the beginning, but I teach dogs to wait to go through a doorway. And for the fleshing breeds, they're going to sit when they wait. And for the pointing dogs, I'm going to ask them to stand and wait. So I'm planting my little seeds right at literally 8-9 weeks old if it's a personal dog I'm raising. Otherwise, I start right out of the chute day one, however old a dog is when he's dropped off to me to work. And that basically is real similar to what you're kind of doing. So whoa on a table.
More of an association thing.
Stand still until you're released. Once you kind of loosely, stop when I stop, and then you're allowed to move again upon the release command. Always build a release command into your dog, right? So then whoa on a table is real common. That's a good thing to do. The barrels have been really popular a while back. They're kind of faded a little bit, but boy, for a while they were all the rage, right?
Yep.
And so there's nothing wrong with barrel training a dog to whoa.
Right.
Remember the place boards were real popular for whoa.
Yep. Keep a little board with you.
Yeah, and then there's a whoa post. Delmar Smith really is the one who made that popular in his book, which is still something every single pointing dog owner should read. The best way to train your gun dog. It's a timeless classic.
Just works.
Just pure common sense dog training. No, from a really knowledgeable guy. I utilize whoa post a lot when they get a little bit older. So the thing to remember is no one whoa training technique is a complete course.
Right.
Take the barrel, for instance. Right. At the end of the day, perfectly done, we've taught our dog to stand on a barrel.
Right.
Okay, well, that's not a complete course in the whoa command. Yeah. So if you go right from there to your dog screaming by you in the field, top speed at 70 yards, you go, whoa. He's saying, I don't know what that means,
Only if he was running down a barrel.
Yeah, right.
Or a very large pipeline.
Right. But it serves a purpose in the process. Yeah. But you need to push beyond that and get the dog to the point where whoa means whoa in the field, no matter what's going on around you. And that's a process where you take small steps towards that goal.
Do you reinforce the whoa with a whistle, like a one whistle blast or anything? Or is it like when you're out, let's say you want to stop your dog crossing a road and you don't even know if there's a car coming, but I don't want him over there. Yeah. Will you just holler whoa?
If I'm close and I know that dog's clearly going to be able to hear me, then sure, you could do that. Yeah. And then so a lot of people would say, well, what if he's way out there and he can't hear you? Whoa, what are you going to do? In that situation, I'm going to actually opt for come when called or here.
Oh, use
in
a
that
whistle to
situation.
Have him come in.
Come back.
Instead of trying to stop him at a curb.
Right. Call him to you.
Line, just call him.
Call him to me. I'm going to heal you through the potential danger that's in front of there, and then once once we're beyond the potential dangerous situation, now I'll release you to hunt again.
Good. That's a excellent point.
Yeah. A lot of people misuse whoa. This is something that'll have to be saved for another version, but there's something that I've always referred to as protecting your training, and that's knowing when not to give certain commands in certain situations. And whoa is one of the commands we very much want to protect.
I learned something right there today. And I know it'll stick in my head.
Yeah.
Why? Yeah. Why are you trying to stop the dog at 80 yards? Why don't you just call it back in? I've tried to stop him, but what I've done is when I teach whoa, again, not a trainer, just hobby trainer. I back it up with a one whistle blast in my hand. Kind of like a lab thing. Kind of like when they get the lab to stop and turn and look. Yeah. I'll give them the whoa, and then I work it with a whistle and a hand. And if I pay attention long enough with the dog, and I've only done it with a couple, I can do one hard blast on the whistle. And not so much while he's running in the field, though. But while he's like going on a retrieve or doing something else, or just screwing around, I can get him to stop and look at me. But I don't know if that's really whoa or it's just a chunk of the whoa. I'm not sure.
Well, it's something you and your dogs have worked out.
It's something
and not everything has to be by the book or something. And that's the beauty of training your dogs is you guys are a team and you figure out something that works for the two of you.
Right.
And
it doesn't work with the next two dogs you train.
When you think you got it all figured out, right?
Then we come see Justin.
Yeah.
Just fix this for me. All right. This is going to go into the whoa post. A whoa post neck versus the stomach.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not a whoa post neck. I've seen it in magazines. And for some people who might, or especially there's quite a few newer people that write in the comments, the whoa post is a rod in the ground, right?
Good sturdy stake in the ground, Swivel on top.
Swivel on top. Your dog's lead goes from his collar through that swivel. And how does
well, there's a couple different setups, but the one that I employ is, good sturdy stake in the ground, swivel on top. I'll have somewhere in the neighborhood of a 12 to 15 foot, almost like the tie-out cables you see. It's just a cable with a brass snap on each end. Yeah. And then it's a two-collar setup on the dog. The lower collar goes to the anchor in the ground that's tethered by a cable, and then the dog's regular ID collar goes to your lead or check cord.
Okay. So you've got control And then he's also tied back to a post.
Right,
Okay.
right. And so basically it puts you in a situation, if the dog goes to come towards you, that cable's going to stop him. If he goes to get squirrely, back up, move left or right, we can control him with the check cord.
Okay.
So that's one thing that was first preached by Delmar Smith, in there. Now you'll see in his book, I think back when he wrote that, a lot of the dogs were real stubborn and hard-headed. We have a lot more cooperative dogs now. He advocated the use of a pinch collar on the woe post,
Right.
not the collar that our cord's connected to, but the one that's connected to the anchor stay. Right.
Yep.
I've actually found that to be counterproductive to some of the softer type dogs.
You can see that.
I actually just use another regular flat ID collar. I don't get into any of the corrective type collars unless after a week of doing it, I go, this dog just isn't getting it. And he's one of those super, strong-willed type dogs at a real high level of sensitivity. Then maybe I'll opt for a pinch collar. But most of the time, just 2 flat ID collars.
So neck versus stomach then.
Right, so that kind of, the whole, I've heard it called a belly band, but basically what that is an e-collar around the flank of the dog with the, receiver part, the contact points positioned on that thin skin of the dog's stomach or belly.
Right.
And so that's going to be brought into play at the point where the dog has had a lot of repetitions of the whoa command, very clearly understands the command and is willing to do it. And now we're bringing in the e-collar so we can collar condition the dog to make steps towards off-leash obedience to whoa.
Okay.
Basically, your e-collar is becoming your invisible whoa post or your check cord or your barrel or your place board or whatever you've been using. And that's how we get to an off-leash field whoa. So we get that consistency, being able to back it up with an e-collar. For some reason, that belly collar got really, really popular 6-8 years ago, and I still hear of it. I don't utilize it myself. I haven't found a need to. So what it does is you're trying to simplify things, and you're establishing a point of contact. So stimulation on his belly means stop moving.
Okay.
So they're using low-level continuous stimulation when the dog is in motion, and as soon as he stops, the collar shuts off. Real basic collar conditioning premise. Pressure on, pressure off. I don't do it only because I feel like we're establishing a point of contact that only in the next latter stages I'm going to want to get away from. I don't want to have to hunt a dog with a collar strapped around his waist the rest of his life.
I wouldn't hunt with you.
No, so why are we establishing a point of contact that we're only going to try and take away? Ultimately, we want the dog to wear one collar, and that's on his neck.
Right.
So if you do it correctly and your training is thorough, you will have no problems collar conditioning the dog on his neck for whoa and the come when called and change direction, anything else you want to.
Right.
I think the belly band is kind of a little bit of a shortcut almost. I've seen some dogs really get their wires crossed using one around birds.
Yeah.
I've seen some dogs walk straight backwards on point as I approach to flush. I'd never seen that before. I'd seen dogs where a belly band was probably not used quite correctly.
Right.
But I keep it all on the neck. How far do you want to go with that? Okay, for heel, we're going to strap one to his ribs. And then for sit, we got one back here. It's unnecessary if you're doing your training correctly.
Right. And everything goes back, like we talked before, and other trainers have said, your foundation.
Yeah.
The wider that foundation base, the more you got to build on. But if it's kind of a skinny foundation,
Yeah.
You might have to go to belly bands and double collars and
Yeah.
2 different e-collars.
And at that point, you got a mess, right? Is what you got. Because your foundation was weak. Now you got a dog that's a little confused. And, Jim Ripkema, one of the most knowledgeable dog guys I've ever known, he always used to call it, now you're like the little Dutch boy in the leaky dam, right? Oh, I got to fix this over here, right? And so we plugged that hole.
Right.
Uh-oh. Now we got another hole over here.
Spend your whole time
plugging holes. Now to fix this problem, we kind of made another one over here.
Right.
You can prevent that with the overwhelming majority of dogs by not being in a hurry, making sure your foundation is sound. Introduction to the e-collar is one of those things I wish people would take the time to educate themselves more on and how to learn to use these e-collars as a true teaching tool.
Do you ever do any kind of group classes like that? Has anybody ever asked?
I do mostly one-on-one private lessons because then I can gear it towards that individual owner and dog.
That's a good point.
Now, for something like an educational type class on the proper use of a collar, that might be an okay fit for a group session.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It would be. I could see where it would be helpful to some people. I'm one of them guys. I rarely use a collar because I've never, and at least I know, don't use a collar if you don't know how to use a collar.
Yeah.
So many people use a collar without knowing how to use it.
Yeah.
But I've just used it for like chasing a deer.
Yep.
Or something like that. And the rest of the time I live with whatever happens.
Yeah.
But the people who rely on that collar, it's almost like, did you do any hands-on training with your dog first, or did you think this collar somehow speaks canine?
Yeah, it doesn't teach a dog anything.
No, it doesn't.
Other than like for deer chasing, I suppose in that situation it could teach a dog deer bad.
No, he's chasing a deer and all of a sudden his neck hurts.
Yeah,
that's pretty much
deer's bad.
Porcupine.
Yeah, porcupine, snakes, any off game. Yeah, it's a no command situation. Let the collar do the work. But for command reinforcement.
Yeah.
People could do a lot better at learning how to use a collar as a teaching tool and not a last resort corrective device. Here, all kind of guys, I just got to get his attention,
Oh, God.
No, that's misuse of a collar the majority of times,
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Fortunately, these dogs oftentimes are pretty forgiving and turn out okay despite sometimes the best efforts of their owners.
Yeah, we've said that before. It's usually the people.
Yeah.
I mean,
There are some bad dogs out there.
But there's a lot worse bad dog trainers.
Yeah.
Or home bad dog trainers. All right, here's our last one you mentioned we needed to talk about. You know what? I've been hunting with my dog for years. I never lost a bird with my dog.
Yeah, have you heard that before?
I've heard that before.
Yeah, I have too.
I've read that. Now, I have read that in print.
Yeah, that's a bold man that writes that statement down.
Right.
Yeah, so I hear it all the time. Oh boy, we used to hunt pheasants in Iowa with Uncle Rick and his dog Sport. I tell you what, we never lost a dog with old Sport. That is absolutely a myth. Now, there's usually one of three things at play when somebody says that about their dog. For certain, the dog is dead, right? So they get a lot better because he's gone. That's just an undeniable fact of bird dogs.
About your youth.
Yeah. So. And then, and what happens, our fondness for a dog that's in doggy heaven, there's a little human filter at play. We remember what we want, right? So, yeah, old Sport lost some birds. You just choose to filter that out.
Right.
Or it's a guy who has a dog that did very, very little hunting. Yeah. And maybe the little minimal hunting the guy did was some easy pen-raised chuckers and a preserve that had manicured habitat and were easy to recover.
Right.
Okay, then maybe old Sport did retire with a perfect track record. Yeah.
I
don't know a single dog that does any amount of real bird hunting that doesn't occasionally lose a bird.
Right.
They all do. It's a fact of our sport that a lot of times guys don't like to talk about. Cripple loss.
Yeah, a lot of same with deer hunters and
Yeah,
stuff. They don't like to address that so much.
And none of us like it, but it is a fact of if you're going to do any amount of hunting, there is going to be a certain amount of cripple loss.
Right.
So last time we talked, you brought up something that I must have mentioned to you years ago or something about how I kind of pass on small quail coveys. I don't feel like I need to be shooting on those small coveys, right? So that kind of comes into the ethics of our sport.
Yeah.
And so this cripple loss kind of falls under that same heading, right? So this has been like a burr in my boot for a long time. So here we are, right? So I'll give you my take on it, okay? Doesn't mean you don't have a good dog. Sooner or later, the best of dogs, it just didn't happen.
Right.
There's a lot of scenarios that can lead to cripple loss, okay? It's the stone dead bird that just fell in a horrible place to have a chance to recover it.
Right.
And that's compounded by the fact if we have a young dog with us.
Yeah.
Really tough setup, young, inexperienced dog. We're going to leave a percentage of those in the field, unfortunately.
Yeah.
The broke wing runner, okay?
Yeah.
Boom, hits the ground, he's off to the races. I call those coin flips. Sometimes we get them, but sometimes we don't.
Yeah.
What about the birds that get up, shoot, and you see a leg drop?
Right.
Or you see them rock, maybe a few feathers come off them, but you didn't get head, neck, or wings, and that bird flies off into oblivion, okay?
Yeah.
We still killed them, we just don't get to take them home.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
On my personal level, and I think ethically, you got to count those against your limit.
Huh?
And I wish more people would see it in that light, okay? Just because you didn't take them home doesn't mean you didn't kill them. You did.
In Alaska, if you shoot a game animal with a guide and you wound it, that's your tag.
That's your tag.
It's your tag.
Yeah.
And so you're applying that to
Yeah.
the bird. Boy,
I know.
That would be a tough one to sell in South Dakota, wouldn't it?
Yeah, you don't think you'd get very far. But,
No.
you know, if you think about it, and now legally, you're perfectly legal to continue to hunt.
Right.
Because you don't have those in
not
your
in the bag.
possession.
Yep.
And nobody's really out there other than the check at the truck from the warden, right?
Right.
But while we're actually hunting, only we know that we did that.
Yeah.
And so really what gives a hunter the right to go out there and lose a woodcock in a nasty swamp that he knows was stone dead?
Right.
Send one flying off with both legs hanging because he shot him in the butt. Wingtip another one that his pup couldn't find.
Yeah.
And then actually have 3 that he shot and recovered.
Right.
And then he goes, I shot my limit of woodcock.
I killed 6.
You killed 6,
Yeah.
but you only brought 3 home. So that's one thing that I would like everyone to think about a little bit this fall when they're out there.
Yeah.
Again,
Good point.
doesn't apply to the preserve situation. Pen-raised birds were born to die. You can go cripple 100 of them and I don't care, all right? But when we're hunting wild birds, those are a finite resource. There's only so many of them out there each season, and I think we owe it to the birds, the respect for the game we pursue. Count your cripples towards your limit. Not everybody's going to do that. In fact, I would be shocked if 20% of hunters do that.
Right. But, you know, in the right situation, if you're going to have more opportunities the next day,
Yeah.
I could see where a guy could start applying that.
Sure.
You know.
Yeah.
And you could also, sometimes you could blame it on the dog, but then it's your dog.
It's your dog.
So
Right.
you are to blame.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
if you really bring, I had a German short hair, well, the one that's how I first met you.
Yeah.
She could care less about a crippled bird.
Yeah.
She was a great pointer.
Yeah.
But she had no, I mean, you know, if it was in the basic area.
Yeah.
But if she'd even see another dog going for the retrieve,
Yeah.
she went off to hunt.
Yeah, and you know, you can train, you can do the force broke retrieve,
Yeah.
chain retrieve, you can do all that. But ultimately, there's got to be that want to do it in each dog. And some of them just don't care much about hunting dead. They want to go find another one. Yeah, that's just, yeah.
And so if you got that kind of dog, which I had,
Yeah.
there's probably some times where I should have said, I got my limit today, but
You did, yeah. You don't get your picture on your tailgate with all of them, right?
Yeah, but everybody knows there's 4 guys and there should be 12 birds in the tailgate,
Right,
Justin.
right.
We gotta, but
Yeah.
that's a good point, Justin.
Yeah.
So, wrapping this up, I heard this, I think it was through, can't remember the guy, but it's been on a couple other people have said it, so I'm not taking credit for this. But these myths and these things we hear are basically, it's called being fooled by randomness. You know? Because if it happens to you a couple times, all of a sudden it's the gospel.
Yeah.
But it's really just random. You know, you caught a fish in this one spot.
Yeah.
So now you go to that spot every time. Just happened to be random luck, you know.
Yeah.
We get fooled by randomness, and we get and it's easy for us to, just like we, what's that one word? Anthropomorphize.
Anthropomorphism.
That's it. Where
Yeah,
you give
that's
human characteristics to the
to
dog.
animals, yeah.
And after long enough, I mean, you start having conversations with your dog like they can understand you.
Sure,
You know?
sure.
And we're all guilty of that.
Yeah.
So that's how some of these myths, I'm sure,
Yeah.
just. And then the first guy, well, when I talked with Ben Williams, he was kind of busting on some other writers. He says there's some writers out here over the years, maybe not right now, but when he started writing articles, he said they hadn't spent any time in the field.
No.
And they were writing articles that the guys in the barbershop are reading. And that's where we get some of these myths we're dealing with, I guess. And the things you deal with.
Yeah, Ben's a very rare man, and that is he's a combination of a guy extremely deep in real world bird dog and hunting experience, and he happens to also be a gifted writer.
Right.
Many people are one or the other.
Yeah.
You rarely find both in the same person, and I tell people if he wrote it, it's worth reading.
Yeah.
That's just a fact.
Yeah.
But and a lot of people too, when they hear these myths or whatever, you know, a person who's had 1, 2, or even 3 dogs will say, "Well, I did that, but he still turned out fine." Right. Okay, you probably did.
Yeah.
Very accomplished dog man Ryan Frame in Pennsylvania calls it the rule in 98%. There's all kinds of stuff you shouldn't do with your dog that you get away with 98% of the time. Mm-hmm. But if you make a habit out of it over the years, sooner or later it'll bite you in the butt. Mm-hmm. So just because you got away with it and your dog turned out okay doesn't mean that you probably should have done that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So we try and tilt all the odds in our favor we can.
So have you ever lost any birds in the field?
Plenty. Each and every season, unfortunately, but I'm not too proud to,
of course.
admit that.
I said one time to a person, I said, I know I've lost a good handful of birds.
Sure.
Good, whatever the percentage is, it's probably 1 out of 5, maybe. Who knows? Whatever it is.
Yeah.
But I said one time, I said, I don't think I've ever lost a woodcock. You know, because mostly they kind of drop, and mostly they're kind of close. And then a friend of mine reminds me of a trip that we were on. He goes, "We couldn't find out. Don't you remember?" I'm going, "Oh, yeah."
Yeah.
And like you said, you tend to... I wasn't blocking that out till I lost the woodcock.
No, it's human nature.
It just, we lost the woodcock.
Yeah.
And after enough years, you really don't remember.
You don't.
I've run into people that have met me. I'm sure you get the same way.
Yeah.
Can't remember them.
Yeah.
You know.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and so,
You recognize them, but the name sometimes slips you.
Tough.
Yeah.
Or at least good.
Yeah.
So anyway, anything else you want to close on, or do you think? I think we covered some good shit.
I think that's about it. Remember, those dogs aren't robots, you know, and so don't treat them like one. You know, living, breathing, thinking critters, and they are. Yeah,
a couple times.
Yeah, and don't ever confuse disobedience for lack of understanding what we want. I see a lot of dogs corrected in situations where the dog wasn't being defiant.
Right.
That was a misread on the handler's part, and that correction is of no value. Only detriment. So be really tuned into your dogs and know what they're doing. And know how to apply only the training you've given them. And if they do things you don't like, you got to sit back and ask, you know, well, did I really do a good enough job of teaching this dog that was what was expected of him, or that's not okay?
With some dogs,
all the time. Yeah, you got to know, and that's okay. Well, we're going to fight that battle a different day.
Yeah.
Today's not the day.
Now you're taking off in 2 weeks? Or 3?
Yeah, August 24. We got a September 1 opener. I got hunters right on opening day, so I got a boogie. September 24th.
And you'll be back October?
Yeah, October 2nd. I'm back. I got to make sure the grouse don't get tame here. So
you gonna do your part?
Yeah.
Well, when you come back, let's do another one.
We will.
And I'll sign off. Goodbye to everybody. I hope you enjoyed it. And please leave a comment on iTunes because I'm starting to drop in the ratings. God damn it.